Okay, so we're underway, Vladimir. I thank you so much for coming to the channel. And Willie, I'm so interested to hear your story because there's not a lot of information about you. You're a piano player. You've been playing, it looks like, jazz music for many years. You've played with a lot of the legends that we know here in the United States. I think you played with Ron Carter, and there were several other people listed. But a lot of people probably don't know your story. And I ran across you from these records here that I found on Elusive Disc. And so up until that point, I never heard of you, and there's probably a lot of viewers that haven't either, but should hear of you because these records are fantastic. I was very impressed with these. And so I guess we'll start off and just ask you about your childhood growing up. It looks like you were born in St. Petersburg or Leningrad, I guess probably at that time in Russia or Soviet Union at that time.
Yes, true. Yes, growing up in Leningrad, studying violin first and the piano, and of course classical music, but was kind of always fascinated by what we used to call light music, things that would come from radio and melodies from television or film. So I used to always pick up stuff that I used to hear by ear on the piano. So that kind of brought me to the fact of improvisation, which I had no idea what it is, but it was a nice way to get to know girls, because I was not so sporty, but because I could reproduce very quickly on the piano some popular tunes without any music and stuff like this. So yeah, that made me somehow
just by ear.
Just by ear, would be some usually. Well, we didn't used to have what we have now, like millions of different films and series and stuff like this. So when some new film would come out, everybody would see it,
right?
And so if there was some interesting tune in that film that would connect to that popular movie, then everybody would know it. So I would pick it up and play, without any music or stuff like this. So that would impress some people, And then early on, I learned from, I can't remember from where, but I learned how to play boogie woogie on the piano, and that was also very, very impressive to many people. So somehow I was able to connect with what we now know as blues.
So what age did you start playing music at? Did you have a musical family? Was that encouraged as you were growing up, or?
Yes, I was. Yes, my Jewish mother, of course, as all the Jewish mothers, as soon as you show any kind of talent, my boy is a genius. He must be a musician and stuff like this. So because I was able to pick up things by ear from the records or radio, so they realized I was musical, and so piano was at the house. They were not musicians. My father was engineer, my mother doctor, but they loved music. My father played by ear piano, and he played trumpet in the army. But we had musicians in the family. My cousins played. They took lessons, and my older cousin, first cousin, was a professional pianist, jazz pianist, we can say, and arranger and a band leader. So sometimes I would follow him to his gigs and see how he would just open the music and read it. They used to have bands in the movie theaters. So I remember very distinctly, I followed him, and he had like 3 or 4 this kind of gigs per night, when he would just come, and there would be people waiting for movie to start, and there would be a band, with a singer and violins and horns, and he would just open the music and read the music and play, and I was very impressed by that. So I said, this is interesting. I would like to do that. But I was studying classical, so there was no really outlet for me. Okay, so if you want to know my transition to jazz music, we
Sure, that
used
would
to,
be great.
in Leningrad, strangely it may sound to some people, we had lots and lots of jazz.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, people basically danced to the jazz music. It was predominantly at that time, it was Dixieland. We had some very good Dixielands. And there was uh, also 4 or 5 culture houses where big bands were playing. So, and the first set in the big bands usually would be some kind of swing music. People would listen, and then they would start playing dance music, foxtrots, tangos, and everything. In restaurants, also, the jazz was also, usually in the restaurants, people would not dance; they would be eating and drinking, and they would be listening to the first set. And first set would be always something jazzy, you know. Later on, maybe mixed with bossa and things like this, and then later on, of course, entertainment, dancing music. So as young people, even though I studied classical, we used to go out to dance, and so we always danced to the jazz music. And so because I was able to pick up stuff by just hearing it, I started entertaining my friends and girls, of course, by playing all this repertoire that I heard bands playing. So at some point, somebody probably has heard me playing that, and maybe they needed piano players, so they invited me, because I knew the songs, so I always could play by ear whatever I heard. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew, I knew,
Right.
I knew it was going in, So yeah, even from the early childhood, I remember I was at some summer resort with my mother, and I was practicing in this place where they usually had, later on they had some dance band, and they heard me practicing, and then I dared to play with them again, because my ability of just pick up stuff by ear. So that took me to um, start playing with the bands, and then uh, I started getting jobs playing a different, because there was a lot of student places in Leningrad where practically every night there was a different dance in a different student place. So you could work quite a lot playing jazz, playing tunes, American tunes.
Right.
And of course, sometimes mixed with some popular tunes that was popular tunes, Russian popular tunes of the day, maybe, arranged by in some kind of jazz way or something. So that led me to contact with other musicians, and so then I start finding out, how do you learn to play this music?
The
And
jazz
so
language, right? It's a
yeah,
different language than
how do you find, I mean, there was very few records, and so they told me, we listen to the Voice of America. So people were used to listen to, 5 times a week. Willis Conover, uh, the gentleman from Washington D.C., who I got to meet and being friendly with later on, and so he would have his program, and the first hour would be like popular music, Voice of America, Music USA, and the second part would be always jazz hour. And so it would come twice. And early in the evening, there was a lot of jamming on the radio, so you couldn't hear really clearly. But then later in the night, they repeated it, kind of like 2 o'clock, maybe in the morning. They would repeat it, and that signal was clear, so you'll be able to tape it. So that was the key. They told me, you get the tape recorder, get the radio, and start taping things and
oh, I
start
got you.
playing this thing. So he would play all the latest records, and sometimes he would have interview by jazz musicians. And I was learning English, even though I studied French in school, but I started learning English by trying to read downbeat. trying to read some, some other things. And so that was also helpful to me in learning English. So I became kind of like most musicians in the East Bloc and Russia, addicted to this Voice of America program.
Okay,
So
that's interesting.
later on, I would go on the tours, and I would always have this big radio with me and tape recorder, and I would religiously tape. And
So this would
sometimes
have been in the 60s, Vladimir?
that would be in 60s, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All through the 60s, up until I left Russia in 1973. And I went to Israel. I immigrated to Israel, and even still in Israel, I continued to listen to Voice of America. Yeah, up. And when I came to Finland in '74, I still listened to it. I don't remember when I stopped, because there was already so many records were available and most information. Or maybe Willis stopped broadcasting. I'm not sure, but somehow that influence disappeared. But I remember distinctly, still in Israel, I was listening whenever I could, because I was working every night.
Oh, so you were playing music in Israel? There was
Yes.
Jazz. There's a lot of jazz there.
No. Well, sometimes in Israel, when I came, well, I have to make it clear. Even though I always loved jazz, and I always, I didn't really aspire to become professional jazz musician until later on.
Okay.
I played. I knew some tunes, and I would be playing, and maybe I could play them in maybe 3 or 4 keys, and my repertoire was limited. And if I didn't know, I could play by ear. I could fake it. But we played in the restaurants. We played for dances. I played all kinds of stuff. When I came to Israel, I started working right away in a nightclub. And so we got to play all kinds of, Arabic music, Hebrew, Greek music, whatever was popular, whatever needed to be played, I played. So I was not specified as a jazz musician. Even though my love was jazz.
So then after that, you're in Israel.
Then when I came to Finland, yes, that's another story. When I came to Finland, we needed to get a work permit. And rightly or wrongly, when I came to Finland, I had a reputation of jazz pianist.
Okay. Did you go to New York first? Did you go to New York first?
No. I was in Israel. I got Israeli citizenship. Well, of course, wars broke up in '73 when I moved to. After a couple of months, the war broke up in Israel, so that was not so nice. But I played all throughout the war. There was only one nightclub open, and I worked there. And they made me sing, which I hated, but that was okay, because I still was earning a living. I still was playing. But as I said, I was lucky because I didn't have those ambitions. Once you become an artist, you have those ambitions, and then life becomes more difficult. But when I was young, I didn't have those ambitions. I just played jazz for pleasure because I enjoyed it, and the music was my way to support myself. It was easy enough, I didn't need to practice. I didn't need to do anything, because it came easily. But when I came to Finland, because I start getting someplace playing jam sessions, stuff like this, I got the reputation of being jazz player. So I said to myself, since I'm beginning to have this reputation, I better start learning it for real. So I start getting recordings. I start learning more tunes. I start getting deep into it. Plus that they gave me a work permit only to play jazz.
Oh, interesting. So who were some of the records that you listened to, some of the pianists that you focused on when you first started listening to jazz that were your favorites or influenced you?
Well, yeah. The first pianist that really made a big impression on me was Oscar Peterson.
Okay. Yes.
I met some when I was working in a restaurant. I met a Finnish group guide, tourist group guide, who was an amateur drummer who used to come up to the stage with us in the restaurant and play some tunes, you know. But he had some records that he gave me, and so one of those records was "Affinity" by Oscar Peterson Trio, and you know, and right away, first tune, "Waltz for Davy." I never even heard Bill Evans before that, but he
Okay.
played "Waltz for Davy," blew me away. Ray Brown, and so I said, "Wow!" Of course, I listened to many jazz musicians locally, but that from that first record, I became kind of crazy about Oscar, and I learned all that record. I knew every tune on that record,
Wow.
and
So
when you know, and when later on when I got a job with a big band in Moscow, uh, the leader of this band, who was a very famous trumpet player and leader, he wasn't sure about me, so he invited me to a private session in his hotel room, and he wanted to check me out. So he asked me to play something because, you know, in a big band it's hard for me. I was very young, so I just sat down and played, I think, one or two tunes exactly from the Oscar record. So he was so impressed. It was okay. It was no question after that.
okay.
Yeah. So I still remember some of those tunes, but and you know, when I met Oscar later on in life in Finland when he came, I told him about that. I told him about Affinity record, which I think is kind of underrated in his
Yeah.
record.
I haven't seen a lot about that one.
That is a great record. I think it's one of the Oscars' best and one of the trio's best. You know, really, Oscar. I mean, there's everything. I knew there's Night Train and stuff like this that we get requests. I know those records are much more popular,
Right.
but trust me, Affinity is a better record.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yes, please. Not gonna lose anything by it. So anyway, what else? So in Finland, so I uh, start getting some jobs with Finnish musicians, and eventually lots of people. It was a period in the 70s where there were single musicians traveling. You know, you could get American musicians going on in Europe, in Scandinavia by themselves using local musicians. And so I start playing more with American musicians, and I start getting this compliments and type of you should be in New York.
Okay.
In the beginning, I said, you know, people are trying to be, you know, they trying to be nice to me. You know, New York, it's very tough. You know, that's the reason I went to Israel, because I could. There are some people who went directly to U.S. There was a choice when you immigrate from Russia. You could go to Italy and for half a year study English and go to either US or Canada. This is sponsored by the American Jewish organization.
Okay.
Or you could go directly to Israel. So I chose to go to Israel because I knew that I wanted to go to Finland. I had a Finnish girlfriend, a woman that I was involved with, and we wanted to be in Finland. I spoke Finnish, and I met many people from Finland in Leningrad. You know, so I felt kind of secure in being in neutral country. Uh, America seemed a little bit frightening to me. You know, I didn't think I was ready musically or anything. I don't know what I was going to do. So, yeah, so little by little, people were telling me you should come to New York, and in the beginning, like I said, I was a little bit cautious of that. You know, I had an offer to go to Berkeley School of Music in Boston on a full scholarship because I played with some of the teachers from Berkeley Music, and they were sufficiently impressed that they talked about me in a school, and they said we can offer you a full scholarship.
Wow.
But then by that time, I had already 3 years in Finland towards my citizenship.
Okay.
So they told me if I asked for permission to go maybe for a year study in US, They said, no, you can do it, but you will lose your time that you put towards your citizenship. So I would have to start all over, and that didn't seem to be. Again, I was a little bit coming from Soviet Union. I wanted to have some neutral passport. I wanted to
Sure.
have some firm, So I didn't go at that time. But then I start playing more with American musicians, and when I got the Finnish passport, finally citizenship, I started traveling to New York, and I realized how much more I had to learn, and how much I could learn just by being there. By just being in that environment and hearing all this music directly. So I said I'd have to start getting prepared to move, because I wanted to be as good as I could possibly be, and you cannot do it unless you go to New York. That's in my. I still of that opinion.
Right.
You
So
know,
who did you run into, or who did you meet there that you started to play with, the different musicians and people?
Well, I played with quite a few people already in Finland and Sweden, and when I would go to some festivals in Europe, I would meet lots of musicians. I would always be friendly and available to meet different people, and if there was a chance, I would go and sit in. And once I start going to New York, I start immediately sitting in with people and meeting more and more people. Of course, in Russia, I already met people from Ted Jones Smith Lewis band and from Duke Ellington's band.
Okay.
We met them. We met them, and of course, I didn't mention that in 1962, when I was just a young boy, I heard Benny Goodman Orchestra. They came to Russia, and I went to the concert.
Okay.
And there was of course, I didn't realize, but all the top musicians that I later on start listening to, Zoot Sims and Phil Woods and John Newman and Victor Feldman, Mel Lewis, all those people. I didn't get to meet them, but I was there, and I was there at the jam session. I was really young, but it made a big impression on me, just seeing how they even how they set up the rhythm section. I remember when Victor Feldman played, and Mel Lewis and Bill Crow, when everything was different than what we used to see in Russia. So when Duke Ellington came, we had a jam session with musicians from that band, and then later on Ted Jones and Mel Lewis. By that time, I already was playing quite a lot, so I got to be quite friendly with Thad, Roland Hanna, who was playing piano, who became very friendly with me. And, I met Pepper Adams, Jerry Dudgeon, John Faddis, Jimmy Nepper. So I got to meet all those people in Russia, and we organized jam session, and there was a police trying to break up the jam session. So, so you become closer to certain musicians when you go through this kind of thing. So they were younger, and they was all new to them, the political system in Russia and all that, And Max Gordon I met, the owner of the Village Vanguard.
Okay. So you knew a lot of people when you got to New York.
Yes, I knew quite a bit of, yes. I knew lots of musicians that I met just like this, but like Ron Hanna, I knew really well, because I met since when I moved to Finland, and traveling a little bit in Europe, I sometimes run into them, like at the Nice Jazz Festival, and in Finland we had a Pori Jazz Festival, quite a big festival, and so people would come, and so I would see them from time to time. I would see them again before I moved to States, so I would keep in touch.
Okay.
So when I came to New York, I knew quite a lot of people already, and so finally I moved, because I already had 3 or 4 people that I I worked with in Europe, they promised that they would hire me if I come to New York. Like Clifford Jordan, I made a tour with him, and I knew his music very well. And so John Newman, I played with Al Gray and Buddy Tate. They had a band, and so I played with both of them. So I had already some gigs when I came to New York. I had some things lined up, and of course there was this fantastic piano place in New York called Bradley's. I don't know if you know anything about it.
I don't think I've heard. No, not really.
It's the best piano room in the world. Maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, I haven't lived through the time when was bebop revolution and all that, when everything was, when it was original Birdland and of course, that was way before my time. So I don't know how that must have been fantastic. But Bradley's was a place where they had usually piano and bass. And right away when I came there, I realized it was incredible atmosphere. All the musicians would come there. It was like after hours place. Musicians would finish their jobs and they would come and listen. And all the top pianists would play there. People like Hank Jones, Tommy Flanagan, Ray Bryant, Cedar Walton, Kenny Barron, all those people, they were regulars in that place. So that's Ron Carter, of course, all these people, in the price range that club could afford. We're not talking about the top people. Oscar Peterson wouldn't play there, Chick Corea or Herbie Hancock, all those people, they were too expensive. But they would come to listen to the other pianists, though.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, you would see them there, sometimes jamming. Stan Getz would come there and jam, and Chet Baker, all kinds of people would be there, Sarah Vaughan, George Shearing. You would find them jamming, but they wouldn't be working there because there was not enough money. And it was a tough place. You had to play 4 sets.
Okay, yeah.
So it would go until like 3:30 in the morning.
Wow. So that's a lot of playing.
Yeah, lots of playing to do. Yeah. And every piano player in New York wanted to play there. Trust me. So I got to know Bradley. Bradley Cunningham was the owner of the place, who was a piano player himself. And he just made this place very comfortable for musicians. And the piano was great. Paul Desmond had that piano, and he left in his testament, he left it to Bradley. So
interesting.
Great big nice piano, and fantastic acoustic. You could hear every note in every part of the room. So to me, in New York, that was absolute best place, and everybody who was in that place, they still talking about that. You could hear real music there. Of course, there was Vanguard and other places. For the bands, it's better, but for piano music, piano and bass, and sometimes there would be maybe some. Later on, they had some drums and horns, but that didn't work so well in that room.
Small ensemble, 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, very intimate place where you could hear everything, and there was regular people that would be always there. And like I said, the personnel, everybody cared about music, and very friendly atmosphere to musicians. So
how many years did you spend in New York then? Now, so that's where you really started to get into the recording.
I started coming to New York in the tail end of 70s.
Okay.
And I moved to New York in 83, and I stayed for 15 years.
Okay, so you.
Yes, I came back here in 98.
And so is that where you started the recording? You started recording while you were in New York, or?
Yes, I made my I made my first record still in Finland.
Okay.
Yes, and that's an interesting story about that. I had a trio with 2 Finnish musicians, and we played in there was a jazz club. It was the only jazz club in Helsinki. There was, there was sometimes some other places where jazz being played, but we had regular jazz club, which they don't have now anymore. But at the
Okay.
time, we had regular jazz club, and we were kind of house trio. And as I said, sometimes we would be backing some American guests or Swedish, some some other musicians from Europe, but lots of times some Americans would come as the singles, and we would play for them. And we also played as a trio quite a lot. So we made a trio record there for like no money, just a little small company. They decided, since we're playing there all the time, why not record it? So we recorded it, and I just got a lot of LPs and cassettes from that. I mean, no payment really that much, but it was like my business card. I used to come to New
Right.
York and give it to everybody. So lots of great musicians had that. Sonny
All
Steed had,
right.
Oscar Peterson had, Tommy Flanagan, all those guys that I met. I said, "Hello, my name is so and so. This is my record." So somebody would throw it out maybe, but lots of people listened to it because they were curious. See, at that time, New York was not as, shall we say, as international as it is now. So kind of, I think, so kind of like Russian jazz musician was a rarity.
Right. Okay.
Not, so they were curious. Due to that, many times they invited me to sit in because, unusual. Now in New York, they have all kinds of people. So
Right.
it's no longer if you say I'm from South Korea and I play jazz, nobody's going to be surprised. Okay, yeah, nice.
Right.
Can you play? That would be the But at that time already, if you're Russian, interesting how you're going to play. It's like
Right.
yeah. So so anyway, with that record, I just have to follow that record somehow later on got into Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, that is another story. Two brothers, Japanese people who were one of them is in a shoemaking and or rather sandal making business, and the other one had a store in Paris that was selling rare and out of print records. So the other brother who is into record business, something you can relate to,
Mm.
would be traveling all over Europe looking for the deals where you can find some unusual records and sell them in his store in Paris, or maybe pass it on to Japanese market, stuff like this. So he came to Finland. I was still in New York. Unbeknownst to me, he discovered this record that I made for a Finnish company, and he liked the way my photo looked. So he said, let's see. And so he heard the first tune and he loved it. He didn't want to even hear more. So let me buy it. And so he went to Japan, and he and his brother, they decided to release it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes. So they contacted a record company. Uh, this small record company, meanwhile, has gone out of business, and the bigger company, uh, which belonged to again to Warner Brothers Finland, they bought their catalog. They had no use for my record or any other jazz records that they made, but big company, they just eating everything up just
Mm.
in case. They just bought the whole catalog for peanuts, and they were not going to release or do anything. But now the Japanese contacted them; they had interest. So the Japanese said, "We want to have some LPs. Can you make some LPs for us for Japanese market?" And so those people that the Warner Brothers said, "No, we're not going to bother with LPs, but we can make you some CDs." So they made like maybe I don't know, maybe they made 1,000, and they sold in the first 2 weeks. So they asked for maybe more. They made like 2 or 3,000 more. They sold out.
And which album is this? What's the name
Huh?
of this album? What's the name of this album?
Live at Groovy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also on LP now.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Practically, I think everything I recorded for for Japanese, it's on LP. Maybe not everything, but quite a few things. Yeah, because there are now some, as you know, there's some interest in having LPs again. So anyway, I was still in New York, and I think at that time it was already 98 at that point, and we were thinking about moving back to Scandinavia. And I got a postcard from a friend of mine saying, "You have a hit record in Japan." I said, I haven't made anything for Japanese. How come? Yeah. Meanwhile, we recorded my first American record in 2000. No, 2000 or 1999. No. No, 1990, I think, or 1991. We recorded for what originally was supposed to be RCA label, but for some reason that we're not going to go into, they decided not to release it. So it was for like few years, it was without any label, but then finally Concord got released. So I recorded it with George Mraz and Al Foster, a fantastic rhythm section and good record. But they sold like maybe a couple of thousand or so, and they had no interest to reprint it, so it just kind of died out. It didn't get very much radio play. So anyway, so that's that was somewhere. I had that record, but Live at Groovy came out in Japan, and it was a big hit. And so the Japanese, this guy who found my record, he contacted me, and he said, I'm coming to Åland. I'm coming to your island. Can you meet with me? And so he said, do you have any more music? And I just made a recording for Finnish radio, and I showed him tape, and he said, we want to release that as well. And then they bought the rights to my American this record, White Nights, that I released, and that was super seller. They're still selling it. I mean, for jazz.
Yes, I noticed that one, and I saw that. So several of them are now being reissued on the different they all seem to be coming through Japan.
Savano Music, Atelier Savano was my first Japanese label, and they still selling my records. But that record, White Nights, it's really sold really well. I understand that it's somewhere in the 75,000. Which
so, that's a lot. That's a lot.
For jazz records, it's a lot. Yeah,
yes.
Just one store in Ginza, Tokyo. Because I'm very familiar with the chef of the jazz department, and he said only they sold 35,000 copies in that, only that store alone.
Wow.
So for somebody who is not very well known, and not it doesn't have a promotion behind him,
right?
Doesn't have a lot of write-ups, as you said, not many people familiar. But you see, Japanese people, as I find out, Japanese audiences, they don't care about all these promotion things. They're very studious. They find some people that maybe not so well known, and they listen to the music instead of going who it is and why it is. And so if they like it, then they recommend it. The person in the store usually is the person who is knowledgeable about, they have jazz department, and as big, probably bigger than what you have. There are so many jazz records, and it's like when you come to just that store alone in Ginza, you are completely lost in this maze of so many records. You just don't know what to do. So they have to rely on that person, and so that person would recommend my records, and so as luck would have it, lots of people bought my record, and Even now, when I come back to Tokyo, and they're so nice. They usually, when they see me coming, they start playing my record. And so, funny, and so, interestingly enough, there's always somebody said, "What is this?" And you say, "This is this guy's music." And they usually buying it and they want to have autograph. Of course, in Japan, autograph is so important.
Yes. Okay.
It's just as important as music. They need to have contact with the artist and have his autograph. That's like a big thing. So yeah. So since they discovered my music in Japan, we made a DVD for Japanese market. One of the first jazz DVDs in Japan, and that sold fairly well. And it was incredible. First time I went to Japan, in every store, they would play that DVD.
Wow. Is that still available? Is that
Yeah,
available for the U.S. market?
I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure it
Okay.
is. Sawano, I don't know because I'm no longer with them. I'm now with Venus Records.
Right.
Yeah, as you can see, I always wanted to be with Venus because they have so many great pianists. In, at least they used to have so many great pianists in their catalog. So I knew about them, even though I haven't been in contact with them or anything. So if you want to know that story, I was playing in Tokyo, and a friend of mine who is a jazz critic who likes my playing, he took Mr. Hara.
The owner of the Venus.
Mr. Hara, he took to the club to hear me. And Mr. Hara, he brought a bunch of his records because he wanted to introduce himself to me. I said, not to worry, I know exactly who you are because I already bought like a bunch of his records because he had like lots of great pianists. So I was very familiar with that label. But I was tied up with another label, so I couldn't, I was not going to approach anybody else. So anyhow, this this Mr. Hara, he had a project for me in mind. He wanted to have a jazz pianist have a version of Russian music, Russian songs. He had this idea of having different pianists from different countries playing jazz versions of music belonging to that country. So he had French pianists play Italian. You get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to have Russian pianists playing Russian music. And at first I refused. I said, no, it's too hard. I mean, I know, of course, lots of Russian songs, but to put them into jazz, I always felt it was, when I heard some jazz versions of Russian songs, I always felt it was corny.
Yeah.
I always felt, oh, and sometimes some classical pieces that people made in jazz, I always felt it's very risky. You're walking on a very tight rope because you are, if I may say, screwing around with something that's already perfect. If you want to get a piece of Rachmaninoff or Tchaikovsky and start jazzing it up, I felt, it's good as it is. I guess maybe it's a purist in me, I just don't feel so comfortable. But he was trying to convince me, and so I gave it a try. So I made this record for him finally, and it didn't come too badly actually. I tried to do it in what I think a good taste, not overdo any. To play beautiful, melodies are beautiful, so you cannot spoil it too much. But well, I let it for the public to decide whether it's.
What was the name of that album? What was that record called?
From Russia with Love.
Oh, okay. I saw that one. Okay.
Yeah. So, but my wife said, I mean, just to be blunt, it's a job. You want to have record out, you do it because record company wants you to do it. You don't screw around. Do it for them. So I did it finally. So we had this, yeah. And when we were discussing that project in Tokyo, I was going to play in New York, and he says, "Huh, since you're going to New York, why don't you make a jazz record for us?" I said, "That sounds good." So so we went, and I made this record very easily, which I still think it's, if not the best, maybe one of my best, which called Whisper Not.
Okay.
Yeah, I made it with Peter Washington and Victor Lewis, musicians that I knew and worked with, and we went to the studio, and it just flowed. It was
Just walk
just
in, play a couple of
just
couple of
talking.
times, and pick.
There's such a great musicians. You don't need to say anything. Not to say anything against musicians I'm playing with now. I mean, they also good. But New York musicians of that caliber, Peter Washington, Victor, particularly if we play, standard tunes, uh, jazz classics and standard tunes, you don't need to explain anything. It's just wonderful. So, and another record I later on I did in New York with the Peter Washington and Kenny Washington. That was dedicated to Tommy Flanagan, who died at the time and was
Unbelievable
one of my
pianist.
big idols. And so we made tunes that he wrote or he associated with him. Yeah, so because they also kind of a challenging thing, because they were part of his trio and they played for so many years with him, and so I had to come up with that level, to play his tunes on the level that they used to. So yeah,
That was a challenge to do that. I'm sure.
it's a big
Otherwise,
challenge, and also do it because we're all doing it on a very small budget. So there is no it's the way I do all the records. You come, maybe we run on the run the tune maybe one time, and then we record it, and it's done.
that's it.
These
That's
two
how you
records,
did these. That's how you
yeah,
did these
this
two.
record CD we did in one session.
Both
We
of
were
these
supposed,
records came from the same session,
yes,
and
we were supposed to do one record, but because we didn't need that much time to rehearse, we expanded. We played more tunes, and so my producer said, "Well, I'm going to release all of it because we like all of it."
yes, they're
I
wonderful.
usually try to make more records, more tunes, so they have more choice, so they could pick up the best ones. So I record enough for them, that's my style of recording. But they liked everything, so they said we're gonna release two albums. I said, okay, if that's what I mean, they know their market, so I'm not the one to judge.
So so tell us about the songs and stuff that you picked off of these, because they're all standards. And also, I do notice that on a lot of your records you play with Hans
Buckingham.
Backenroth.
I
And
just finished playing with him again. I just came
okay,
back from Stockholm. We just played together.
so you've been with him for a long time.
Yes, he's one of the he's one of the best bass players in Sweden. Since we are very close to Sweden, I play quite a bit in Stockholm.
Okay.
So he's a good guy, and there are a couple of others that are also very good players. Sometimes I play with them, but he's an excellent bass player. He's a very quick study, and yeah, so nice guy too. So it's no problem. And yeah, you wanted to know about tunes. Most of these tunes are requests of Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah, so they usually send me a list of tunes that they want me to do.
And you get to pick the ones you want to do out of the list. Yeah.
Most of the time they have good taste. Most of the time it's the tunes that I don't mind doing it, at all. Lots of tunes. Sometimes I think maybe they're a little bit overdone, but if they want it, I try to make it more or less fresh.
Right, which is I want to talk to you about that as well.
I
How you
try,
make
I
how
try
you make the
because
standards fresh. How do you put your own spin on it? Like
how do you
Bill
make the,
Evans used to talk about filling in different notes that aren't, how do you view that as far as the
how do you
making
make
it your own?
the tunes fresh? You use saran wrap, saran wrap. You use
It's
something you put sandwiches.
yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Uh, I don't know. If I don't feel anything towards the tune, of course, I won't record it. So I must feel, and basically, I just play it and let it go.
So
I don't.
they're very much improvised when it comes to,
Yeah,
you
there is
just
no.
basically have how many times.
There's very little prepared arrangements for, except for sometimes for this Russian record. I
Okay.
had I had arrangements because you
Something
have to
like
do it.
this, you don't need it. You just,
Yeah, standard tunes. We know we have basic repertoire between us, and I would just, like I do live gig. I would start with some introduction, and that would take us into the tune, and then I would just interpret it. There would be no need for special arrangement. Here or there, I would maybe add a little bit, but not too much, because I feel the jazz music is mostly about interpretation and improvisation, and interpreting the melody, how you put. And that's why I love the trio, because everything is in your hands, kind of the melody and the rhythm and the chords. Everything is for you to come up with either great or fall down on your face. It's everything. It's in your hands. Rhythm section can help uh, if they good, but mostly like 90% I feel in piano trio is a pianist.
right. And then
So
when it's time for the bass player to take a solo, you just
so
nod
then I
over,
support
they take.
him. Of course, he has to.
uh,
Of course, and the drummer. By the way, I passed your review to uh, my bassist and the drummer, and to a record company producer who was very happy with your
Oh,
review.
great. I'm glad.
Yeah, I passed it. So it's these days it's so easy. You just send it to them,
Yes, send the
and
link.
so yeah, Uh, anyway, yeah, talking about your review, I was very, very happy. I just came by accident, by just my name came up, and I saw the review. I said, interesting, and so I was very impressed, because you seem to know a lot about jazz music, and not only audio's sound, which is, of course, it's important, but as I mentioned, I never heard, because few years back I had a accident here in my studio. There was a fire. I'm also a collector, or at least I used to be, and I had like several thousand of LPs and CDs and all kinds of things, and they all got burned.
Oh,
Yeah. And so I
that's
had
terrible.
yeah, and I had beautiful record player and the system, and everything got burned. So I stopped collecting anymore, because I used to buy and buy and buy and buy. You know how it is. Once you have
Yes,
collected,
I know.
you say, oh yeah, you notice, oh, this new coming out, but I need to have this and I need to have that. So I stopped that, because there's so much music now available on the internet, so you can hear so many things, and of course it's not the same as
Right.
LPs. Uh, what can I say? But I just don't have the money and resources to build up everything again.
The collection, yeah.
My collection was important to me, but it's only important for as much as you are using it, as you listen to it and learning from it. Because I'm really not a collector. I'm a musician, so I just want to learn more things. Of course, enjoyment is important. I also
So,
collected. Yeah.
great. So tell us a little bit about some of the other piano players. I know you mentioned Oscar Peterson.
Oh yeah,
Any of the
Oscar
other ones,
Peterson
was Bill Evans? Some people compare some of your playing to Bill Evans.
came later on. In fact, when I was still in Russia, and I played one time, I played concert. I played some original tune, and people were remarking that to me that, oh, you've been listening to Bill Evans, and at that time I haven't heard Bill Evans, so I guess there was some kind of kinship, maybe something I picked up from other pianists, maybe picked up from Oscar or something. But because at that point I didn't yet heard Bill Evans, but once I get to hear him, he of course completely overwhelmed me. And at one point, it's no longer so strong. At one point, I was completely crazy about Bill. I collected everything, and everything, and try to read and learn everything about him and his life and everything possible. I never got to meet him, which was a sad and stupidity on my part, because at that time in the 70s, I was still living in Finland, and I was for 1 year in another city, Pori, which has the festival. I was there for 1 year teaching and living for 1 year there. And Bill came with his trio to Helsinki. And I was getting ready to go to New York. And in my arrogance and stupidity, I said, why do I need to go to Helsinki? I will be in New York soon, so I'll hear him there. And he died. You should never, you should never pass an opportunity to hear important artist when he plays near you. That's what you learn from that. You can never count on him being always there.
Right.
So I missed that chance of seeing him live and maybe meeting him even,
Any interesting stories from playing with these different musicians? Anything, when you're playing these different, you're playing a lot in these clubs. I'm sure you run into all kinds of, I'm curious to know if you've ever run into places that have a substandard piano, because some of the clubs, Bill Evans would talk about bad keys you have to play around, things like that. Did that happen a lot, or?
It happens all the time. It's still happening, because I'm not in a position to have certain pianos in my contract or something like this. I play on whatever piano is given, which in a way is good, because I learned how to adapt and make a good sound out of almost any piano. So I feel that's my forte. I can get a bad piano sound good. I really can. I can get, and it's a mystery to myself, because like sometimes I would go to some place in like St. Petersburg. They have some clubs. I particularly think about one place. They had this piano. They had some kind of, for humidity, they have some kind of jars with water under it.
Okay, so
I came there and I tried that piano, and it was just horrid. But we opened it up. Came the evening, and the rhythm section came. We start playing. It transformed itself, and that happened several times. The piano completely, sometimes you just will it to sound good. And I remember during the night I completely forgotten it was bad piano. I just was giving everything it has to give. But I noticed that in New York, because in some places where I heard some great pianists, Barry Harris or Cedar Walton, and piano sounded great. Then I went over to that piano, tried to play something. It sounded like horrid. So how does he make it sound like?
So it's part of feeling the touch of the action and everything that you want you to feel it.
Magic of transformation. You kind of just go with it, and it starts sounding good.
And so is the trio format, I wanted to ask you about formats and playing, because I know when you're playing a piano in a trio, it's going to be different than maybe even playing with an extra person. And when you're playing with the bass player, your lower octaves, I would imagine you have to put those in a certain way that doesn't conflict with the bass player. So can you talk a little bit about playing in a trio, or what you think about that versus playing in other
Well,
arrangements?
yeah, there is some mythology about that. Some people believe that you should not play in lower register because it interferes with the bass playing. But I think once in a while it's okay. You know, people of the older generations like Hank Jones and maybe even Errol Garner and people like this, they play big thick chords and bass notes. They don't do it all the time. You see, if
Right.
you do it all the time, plus the more modern bass players, they sometimes go up and playing in upper register.
Right.
So when they go up, I go down to make it more supportive. And sometimes when they take solo, lots of people, they play in a higher register, so that's a good time to fill it up with lower notes. So yes, there shouldn't be such a rule that you cannot do it. I cannot do this. But I remember when I was starting getting into modern jazz piano playing, I realized that you should try to avoid roots and play everything kind of this in the middle, like lots of modern pianists playing. But then I realized when I started listening to more all kind of different piano players, and let me tell you, New York in '70s, it was like a haven for piano players. There were so many great ones at the same time, and there was many joints that you could hear. Teddy Wilson was still playing. You could hear Dave McKenna, it's Ellis Larkins, lots of people, that are completely gone now, and it's like how can we say? There's certain rooms that had kind of like a almost one can say cocktail piano. One can say they were just playing tunes, not
Right.
expanding so much. There was like I remember there was a Nat King Cole room in one of the hotels, and this wonderful pianist Jimmy Lyon was playing, and he played so many tunes. It's not like expanding playing jazz choruses, many choruses. He'll play many tunes with some beautiful harmonies and stuff like this. So I'd go listen to him. Blossom Dearie would play and accompany herself and beautiful chords and stuff like. So there would be many different, and of course, as I mentioned, Bradley's, and across from Bradley's there was a Knickerbocker Salon. So they would compete with Bradley's, and different piano players would play there. They paid a little bit more, so they had people like John Lewis and Billy Taylor and Hank Jones, of course, and Junior Mance and uh, people like this. So you had a lot of opportunities, and in some places you could also see, like Knickerbocker had this bar, and you could be back on, you could be behind the piano. You could see that kind of important too. You could see not only hear, but you could see what they're doing. So because of all that, I knew that I had to be in New York because there
Right.
was there was so many things available, plus the opportunities to play myself. But basically, learning opportunities that you couldn't find anywhere else, because basically somewhere else you learn from records or from appearances on the festival, and it's not the same.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about, I'm curious, you're mentioning the Soviet Union earlier with these
Sure.
bands that came to visit, Benny Goodman, I think being one of the earlier ones, but you still had like Charles Lloyd, he made his record there in the Soviet Union in the 70s and that kind of stuff. But what was
Boy, do
the,
you do
how
you
was that environment for,
boy do you do have a right person to talk about that, because when Charles Lloyd came to Tallinn, Estonia, Soviet Union,
yes,
Estonia.
yep,
Yes. So when he came, I was there in the airport to meet them.
really,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was very excited because I was one of the very few people that, as I said, listening to Voice of America. Not only I heard Charles Lloyd's music, but also Willis Conover announced on his program that they were going to come
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't realize it
So I
had such a
knew
big influence there. I didn't realize that radio had that big of an influence there. That's very interesting.
that program had big influence
Yeah.
in not only in Russia but all over Eastern Bloc countries, and maybe some Western countries too. Maybe I don't know, but certainly all the Eastern countries, like Poland and Czechoslovakia, Hungary, all those people, they were all the musicians were listening to it. So yes, so Tallinn Festival. It was my second Tallinn Festival actually, and I knew they were coming, and well, I'm a kind of a person that is there. I mean, I had many opportunities because I'm always kind of
Around it.
present. I
Yeah.
was around. Yeah, I was curious, and I kept my ears to the ground, and I knew they were coming. So I went with the organizers to the airport to see, and the sight was incredible because when they landed, they had this big afro hairstyles and everything. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Martians landing. As you can imagine, in Soviet Union, where everything is kind of gray and the same, and all of a sudden, these people come with colorful
Yeah.
clothes, this
Right.
big hair and everything. Wow! So they came to Tallinn, and it came about by the fact that George Avakian, who is a producer for
Columbia.
Columbia Records, he was touring them on the promoting tour in Scandinavia. So they were playing in Finland, and he contacted Estonian people in Tallinn, and said, "Can we come and play at your festival?" And they said, "We cannot pay you anything, but you're welcome." So he took it upon himself. He kind of saw of a promotion possibility of this. If we go to Soviet Union, this could be, a good promotion for the band. I think. I later on I dealt with him, so that's another chapter. Uh,
Okay.
yes. Uh, anyway, they came there, and uh, first night I saw them. I didn't dare to approach them. I saw them in the audience. They were listening to the bands at the festival, kind of critically laughing at some things. I remember one Finnish singer was singing with strong Finnish accent. They were laughing, and they were sitting. I was watching them. What happened next is Estonian people kind of were not sure what they can do politically wise. They were on a slippery grounds there, because I mean, the Americans came. It was so unusual for Americans to come and to do something without permission. So they contacted Moscow and asked for the permission, and Moscow bureaucrats said definitely no,
Really?
yes, forbidden. But I have to give the credit to Estonian people. They decided to overrule that. But being somehow diplomatic, they decided they should let them play. They were waiting for 3 days without being able to play. They were playing, and they were playing basketball somewhere with the
Oh,
kids. Yeah,
really?
yeah. It's in another story following it. In one of those days, kind of the third day, I was walking by the hotel where they were staying, and what I see in the second floor, but in the window, the one of the guys is playing bass. So I realized they're jamming in the hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
So what I do is I kind of calculated which room it is, and I ran there and knocked on the door. And wouldn't you know, they let me in. I mean, this all sounds like some movie story. They didn't know who the hell I was. They opened the door and they let me in. I came in. I was sitting in the corner and watching them.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were switching instruments. There were no piano there. So the bass player played melodica, this little thing where you blow it with a keyboard.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right, right.
Yeah. So bass player played this melodica. Keith Jarrett played drums, and Jack DeJohnette played bass.
Wow.
So they were famous for that they could switch the instruments, because the Jack could play the piano, and Keith could play drums, and Ron, I guess he could play, also could play the piano. I know that. I don't know if he could play drums, but they were famous for that, because in Russia, and later on Tallinn in Russia, when they went to jam sessions, they would just switch instruments, and so that also made a big impression on everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was in the room when they were jamming. I listened to them. After a while, George Avakian came in the room and said, "You're on tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon." So I was the first one to hear the news. Estonian people decide to let them play,
Wow.
but to let them play in a time in the afternoon where most people wouldn't know they play.
Oh, really?
You understand me? Yeah, because all the concerts were usually in the evening. So they were like between rock and a hard place. They wanted to let them play. They couldn't say no, but they couldn't, but they didn't want to make it like a big noise, so Moscow wouldn't
Find out or
find out. In the end, of course, they did find out, because the record came out and everything. So, and everybody who was connected in the festival was fired. There was never
Wow. Oh,
festival.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah, everybody in the radio, because they made a radio recording out of which came the record, of course. Because the radio was recording the whole festival.
Right. And was this just political, or is that the whole thing about we just don't want them coming? That's
Of course it's political. Of course.
it's all just
Of course it's political. They didn't want anybody to listen to the American music, because American music, everything that is positive had a positive influence towards America, towards Western world.
because it was the height of the Cold War. I mean, that's
Yes. They didn't want so-called. Plus, the bureaucracy. They didn't want to just to go into it, and
yeah.
they just decided it's safer to just say no. The story continuing, because after this festival, of course, I was there at the concert, and they made big impression. Everybody was crazy about this concert, mainly because they were so free. And not only did they play well, but some of that music was kind of out. So not many people. Of course, I was too young to understand it. Some of the things I understood. I knew basically at that time that where they were coming from, because I could hear Keith was playing. I could hear some Bill Evans. I could hear some Wynton Kelly from. So I knew where they were coming from. I knew it wasn't just because they were playing free at some tunes, but I realized that they had roots. You could hear that. So there was no. But they made a big splash, because afterwards a lot of Russian musicians tried to play that music.
It was one of the biggest selling record. I mean, it was one of his.
Huh?
It was one of his big selling records too.
Well, that we found out later. We didn't know at
Right.
that time, but just that style of playing, because Jack was playing at that time a new way playing drums, like it's a style that Tony Williams actually came up with breaking the rhythms and not playing anymore just regular time, but breaking rhythm, and playing more stuff, and a kind of participating in a conversation behind the soloist, and not just keeping time. So that was a new in Russia, and lots of people most of these people didn't have the background that these guys had. So the music didn't come out sounding as good as, because all those guys, they were breaking rules, but they knew the rules, because they all had experience. They all had experience playing with the traditional jazz bands before that. Keith Jarrett was in Art Blakey's band, for Christ's sake, and the Jeanette also, he played with lots of people, organ trios and all kinds of things before he joined. So they knew what they were doing, even though it was modern, but they experimented with the things that they knew. And lots of Soviet musicians didn't have that kind of a background. So
didn't have the foundation.
They sound like an empty copy.
Yeah, right.
I was very skeptical of seeing people, particularly young drummers, trying to break rhythms before they knew how to play time.
Yes, and a lot of those guys came through Miles Davis too, Davis's group.
Of course, that comes from this whole this whole concept came from from that period of time. Yes. So anyway, to make a short story long.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
enjoying it. Everybody,
after, okay, great. Because you have the right person to to make this short story long. After the Tallinn's festival, of course, we came back to our original city of Leningrad, and some bands came to play in Leningrad. Some bands that were at the festival. So Charles Lloyd was one of. There was a concert, a Polish band of alto player Zbigniew Namysłowski, also very, very good band from Poland. They were supposed to play a first part of the concert, and the second part was Charles Lloyd Quartet. And this culture house was quite near where I lived. So I was, of course, there, listened to the first part, and then I saw a minibus came. I saw it from the window, and the director, again, we're talking about bureaucracy, the director of a club, of this culture house, saw the black people with this big afro things, and he locked all the doors and left.
really?
Yeah, so nobody could get in.
Wow.
Okay, so so they couldn't get in to play, and the people, everybody knew at this time, everybody in Leningrad knew they were coming. So there were a lot of people by the windows looking, and of course Charles Lloyd. Now I realize everything. Charles Lloyd is from California, you know.
Right.
So he, of course, being Californian, laid down on trottoir in a protest. Like a good Californian, like I was going to do him any good.
Yeah.
He was on the trottoir protesting. Anyway, finally somebody found the key, and they took them to some cafe outskirts of town, very far away. We all went there, and they played there. There was a horrid piano, talking about piano, horrid piano with missing keys.
Oh
So,
no.
so Keith, yeah, and some rock and roll drums. So Keith didn't even bother playing piano. He took out soprano and played soprano with Chaz Lloyd. So they were but the drums still sounded good. I think Jack probably had his own cymbals, so he just tried the drums. I remember they sound like cardboard. Right, it's okay. They just went out swinging, those. I remember this. So I know they went to Moscow, but I wasn't anymore there with. But I knew they went to Moscow, and they played there in a youth cafe, which is like a jazz club at the time.
So that was a little bit later when they okay,
yes.
well, yeah.
No, they continued to Moscow
Right.
from Leningrad, and they played there. I don't know anything about that because I wasn't there. But they made a splash at the time. So that was 1967, and I was young, budding, just learning how to play bebop and blues and stuff like that. So for me, that was real out. What was?
Yeah, there we are. Yeah, they're out
playing.
there.
Yeah, they were out there, but they had roots, like I said. So that was interesting. So that was the next thing was Duke Ellington's band. They came in, if I'm not lying, 1970, I think, or 71. And I went to the concert. This is also, if you have time.
Yo, yes, of course.
This is also incredible story, because at that time I was touring with this kind of mixed popular band with guitars and stuff like this. So I was touring with that band, and we were near Japanese border, we were playing at the Vladivostok, and we went all the way to like 30 kilometers out of the Japanese border, Russian-Japanese border. So we were all the way in the east, where I heard again on the Voice of America that Duke Ellington is coming now to Russia. and he's going to open in Leningrad. And I'm there. I'm in Vladivostok, like maybe 20 hours flying away from. I'm like, can we say, I'm like in Tokyo comparing to Stockholm.
Right.
Like I'm on the other side of the globe. So I'm saying I need to be there. Duke Ellington is coming. I need to be there. So, but I'm with this band. I cannot leave them. So I had my mother send me a telegram that she was not well and needed my presence. Because we were working out of, the Philharmonic. We were working out of agency of the Philharmonic. So you cannot just pick up and leave. There's no way. So I found a piano player. Luckily, there was another band touring at the same time. So I found a piano player that could sub for me. I told him what I could, so he could sub for me at some concerts. He could do a decent job while I was away. So I flew 17 hours by small planes. They would make all landings, So, but I got to Leningrad and went right away to Европейское Hotel, which Europe Hotel, which they were staying, and I saw all these people from the Duke's band. The whole hotel was full of them, and Duke was in the gift shop trying balalaika.
Wow.
Yeah, this is like a movie. So I went, and of course I went to the restaurant where I used to play there in that place. So I knew that band and that place very well. And so I went there, and and there were some musicians in the restaurant already, and Paul Gonzalez was there.
Okay. Oh.
And so, he wanted to play with Russian band. So he got on the stage. He had like one bottle of vodka and one bottle of champagne. So I climbed on the stage and I said to piano player, I need to play with him. So he let me play. He played, Dark Eyes, Очи черные.
Okay.
Yeah, he wanted to play that with Russian band. Yeah. And he would take, so. Yeah. And then later on, I must say in the concert, they played some suites that I didn't quite understand. Sorry. At that time, I was too young to understand the Duke music, everything. But in the end of the concert, they played some of the Duke's hits, tunes that we as jazz musicians all know, more or less. But in the beginning, they played quite complicated music that was a bit over my head at the time.
So you went everywhere to see people, to see these musicians. You anytime you could.
Couldn't miss it. But then later on, we had a jam session. In the concert, I realized at the very last number that this bold trumpeter came down to the microphone and played some fantastic. I don't remember what tune it was actually, but the whole band was smiling. And later on, I realized it was Johnny Coles. I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
So I knew, I didn't know at the time, but then later on somebody said Johnny Coles, and I knew again from listening to Willis Conover, I knew his name, and I knew that he was playing already at that time. He played in Herbie Hancock's sextet, so I knew who he was, and he was on the Gil Evans' Out of the Cool album.
Okay, right.
Which he sounded quite a bit like Miles. He had that sound like was close to Miles, and I had that album Out of the Cool. So big surprise, Johnny Coles.
Right.
Suddenly he's in Russia. So we had jam session later on, and we played with him, and of course I haven't mentioned, but there were many different bands that used to come from different parts of Europe, and sometimes Eastern Europe to Leningrad, and sometimes like a German Kurt Edelhagen's band and Max Bruch, and let's see, some English bands would come, big bands once in a while, and they would have jam sessions. So you could get, I mean, it was very popular for any band that will come if they had any connection Also, when we toured with our group, even though we played kind of a folk and pop music, but we were basically jazz musicians because we were always after work. We always listened to all the jazz records and stuff like this. And if there was any jam session, we would always go, and in every city we would go and try to play somewhere where there was. Yeah, so it was always, jazz was very popular at the time. No matter what musicians, whatever music they were playing, they were always holding jazz music and at the uh, very high position. And of course, our in Leningrad, uh, our best musicians were always most respected. They were like gods to us. I wouldn't even dare to speak to them. Yeah.
So how is it now? So you're in Finland now, or on an island there. But do you have
Oh,
anything near you where you can play jazz there, or near there, or there's still?
well, I had here when we moved here. Before we moved, actually, when I was still in New York. Uh, my lovely wife that you saw for a short period of time, her family is coming from this island. Her mother owns some land. And so at some point we had built this summer house that we could come to from New York and enjoy the summer here. So at some point we start having family. So it became more and more difficult to survive in Manhattan. Well, we were surviving. I was working a lot. I was doing also some studio jobs, and uh, you know, and she was working. So we were doing okay, but it was became increasingly uh, uh, more difficult and expensive. We had second child, and so the private school, because we had very bad public school in our area. So with all the expenses. Uh, and I started feeling like most of the things that I wanted to do in New York, I kind of did. I didn't become big star, but I played the Vanguard. I played with Dizzy. I played with Art Farm. I played with Freddie Hubbard. I played with Chet Baker. I played with Ron Carter. I played with I I played with Max Roach. I wasn't in a regular bands, but I did get to play with them.
Mm.
And whoever was in the rhythm sections, the bass players and drummers in New York, whoever was active at that time, I did play with all of them. So I kind of, I didn't make a big career in New York, but I was a regular player. Everybody knew, the musicians knew who I was, and they respected me. And I had gigs all the time. So, but it wasn't going anywhere. It was like a repetition of all the things that I was already doing. I wasn't recording, so it wasn't really getting anywhere. But here, in the summertime, uh, local people heard about me. This local person, who was actually a shipbuilder, wanted to arrange a jazz festival. He was an amateur pianist. It's usually somebody who plays themselves, and they're jazz enthusiasts. So they thought maybe they should have a jazz festival here. So they contacted me, and I had, of course, my contacts in New York, and so we start doing festival. And I had support in New York from people in the Finnair. There was also a boss of this branch of Finnair who loved jazz, and he knew me. Sometimes I would play Christmas parties for them and stuff like this. So he would agree to give some free tickets, so we could get some very well-known musicians come and play the festival. So for the first 4 or 5 years, we had this festival here, and I could play with people that I arranged for them to come. Some people we didn't manage to get, like Dizzy. I talked to him. There was a question always of some ridiculous couple of $1,000s that they didn't have. It's such a pity, and I told them, I said, we're making history here. You should not be,
Right.
because they could have Johnny Griffin. I played with Johnny Griffin. I called him. He he mentioned some. It was like 1,000 less that they, I mean, more than what they were ready to play. That's ridiculous. And I said, you should just pay, because there will be years and years from now, you're going to remember that he came here and played here. He's not going to be around forever. Emil Jackson, also, I had a chance to play with him, and I had a contact. These people trusted me. They didn't know anything about the island or the festival, but they trusted me. If I said, it's a good place, it's okay, you're going to get paid, everything's going to, they trusted me. So I had written section from New York. George Mraz came here, and Albert Utihis, they came here, and I was able to go then to other festivals because Finnair provided us with tickets, so we could go to other festivals in Europe and play. So for a few years I could do that. And also we had another festival in the wintertime. Not as much money, but still I felt okay. We had two festivals here, and Stockholm, I had a steady band in Stockholm I could play with every weekend. So there was a lot of things going on for me. So I didn't feel like I was, that I was losing so much. I felt that I could continue to improve and develop here with more practice time and, more time to myself, reading, thinking.
Yes. How did you? So now let's get to back to the Venus records, because you didn't really say you had a contract when you had met him, the owner of Venus.
Yes,
and then how did you come to go ahead and have a relationship and start recording? Because you have several recordings now with him.
He had this first project for me, the Russian saying.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I made Whisper Note album for them with the standard things, and that sold quite well. And so they wanted to continue, and so I don't have a contract with them, but since I'm doing well for them, they still want me to record for them. I think they would want even more, but I'm just I'm very lazy.
So you don't like going to the studio and all that, or
is there a place you can do locally? I just don't feel always that I have so much to say.
Oh, I got you. So where exactly? This says it was recorded in Sweden, the recording studios.
Yard House.
And is that what? Did you pick that, or did they pick that, or how did that work?
No. They had nothing to do with that. We recorded a couple of first records. We recorded in another studio, which was a bit more expensive than that one. The Hans Buckenroos is a bass player that does quite a bit of recording in Sweden, so he knows the studio. So that was his idea, and they were reasonable. They had nice piano, and they're reasonable, and they're nice people. So again, just he recommended that studio. We went there and we did it. So
just in one day.
No big deal. Yeah. No, this was actually 2 days, but
2 days.
But like short days, like 4 hours, and have lunch and coffee, and then. But basically, first takes everything, because, well, as I said, the tunes are more or less familiar. Maybe bass player would require some sketches, some changes. Maybe I would add a little interludes or little things that would make it a little bit different. But basically straight ahead, we just went there and did it, and you should hear the new one that we did. It's quite good.
Yes, I need to get that one.
I think it's better. I think it's, well, I liked it. And well, let me tell you the story that would probably would interest you. You see these two dogs?
Yes, I was going to ask you about the cover.
Yes. Well, both two dogs on both of the albums. It's two dogs. Yeah, two dogs that. Right. These are two dogs. These are actually the pictures that daughter of the owner, as you mentioned, Tetsuo Hara, the producer, the owner of the company. His daughter is like a musical producer. She loves jazz, so that's her dogs.
Okay.
She made this design. That's her drawing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Since
pretty.
that time, yeah. However, since that time, the smaller dog died.
Oh,
Yeah, smaller dog died for some uh, in, inexplicable reason. Got some disease and died. Named Percy, and she was so depressed, and so when I went to studio, I decided to dedicate tune to that dog, and to cheer her up, I made this tune for her. So the next album, I wanted to include this tune, and she was so impressed with the tune that she
so
named the album after it. So so the next album, it's called Blues for Percy.
yeah, I've seen that one on the.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Percy
it,
is the
it-
dog. Percy is the dog that is deceased dog that she was. It's a but if you know the dog owners, it's like her family. It's like
sure,
a
sure.
close. Yeah, so she was really grieving. So I thought I should give her little present from me. What else can I do but give the tune? So I felt this tune when I recorded it for her, and she felt it back. She listened to it, and she was all in tears and everything. So,
I
so
need to
yeah,
get that one.
it's good.
You're
I think it's
they're
good.
hard to
I don't,
find. Your
I
records are
don't.
kind of hard to find. They're hard in the US. It's a little hard. Like you have to go to Elusive Disc or maybe eBay. But is there a place that you know of that you can find
I
a
have
lot of?
no. I have no whatever contact with any part of that of selling. You know, I don't have that LP. That LP I don't have. I
They don't
got
send you them. They don't send you one when you're done.
I got those that you have.
Yes.
And a few more, but I didn't get yet a Blues for Percy. I probably would, but since I don't, it's all academic. Since I don't have a record player, it's nice to have it, but I
Right.
don't. It's nice as a present. Also, I have this big box. They have like what they call masterpiece, where they have collected things from all the albums that they released. They picked up. There's like 5 or 6 discs, maybe even 10. I don't know because I just open and look at it. I don't play it. Maybe
Right.
maybe at some point I should get a record player. Should get a turntable at some point. Anyway, yeah, so I have that big box Venus masterpiece. Yeah, they have quite a big catalog.
Yeah, they do.
They have no longer this top guys that they had in the beginning, but they still have good good musicians. Yeah. So in terms of my laziness, it's just that I don't feel that unless somebody wants me to record something, I don't feel like necessity.
Do you have
You
any
know,
desire to write more music? You're like a whole album of all your
I'm not
own, or
really.
do you?
Yeah, I'm not really a big writer. You know, that's what I was going to say. There are people who write their own original music, and if they have certain backlog of music that they have wrote, they feel the necessity of recording it. I don't have that. I can write a tune, or I can write more tunes if needed. I did it. I did some writing for even for movies or commercial. But it's kind of like a commission kind of thing. You want me to write the tunes? I can write it. I know how to put tune together. But I don't wake up in the morning as composers should and think, first thing I have so much music on my brain. I need to put it down. it's the paper is burning.
Right.
Because yeah, so I do have that feeling towards the piano. See, that's my thing. I want to play. I
So
have
you
a
play every
feeling.
day? You play every
Yeah,
day?
every day as much as I can. I don't get tired if I mean, I don't. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy practicer that practice millions of hours, but I do keep in touch with piano all the time because I get ideas and I go and play. But it's mostly coming from other tunes or classical music because I keep playing classical music to keep my charts up. You need to play classical music, Bach and Rachmaninoff and
Right.
all that to keep your technique, your and also you get so many things from composers, the ideas, the harmonies and stuff like this. This music is so close, jazz music and classical music, I feel it's so close together, interwoven. The difference between classical music and jazz, that we have this rhythmic thing that they don't have, and the swing, that what makes it different, and the blues connection that we have, that not necessarily it's so visible in classical music. But other than that, if you are particularly if you're a piano player, it has to be connected. You have to study classical music to play the instrument correctly, unless you're a genius like Monk or somebody,
Right. Right.
or Garner or somebody, who shows exceptions to the rules. They're just such a natural talent. But Monk studied. People. Yeah, I said that, but I take it back, because at one point, I met Monk's niece, and she said to me that Monk always practiced classical pieces, and Chopin was his favorite, and he always had Chopin music. I don't know how much he could play it, actually, but he
Right.
always tried. But he tried always, and so he always connected. Uh, it may not be that obvious from his
From
compositions or
his
recordings, but and Monk, he used to play in the church. His background was from the church, so we are very close to very, very close to each other. I mean, uh, uh, particularly if you are a pianist, of course, other instruments, maybe not, maybe saxophone not so much, uh, you know but I don't feel any different. I don't feel any different playing Chopin and playing some beautiful ballad. It's just the same. It's a little bit different feeling. But again, playing Chopin is different than playing Mozart.
right.
Playing Prokofiev is different than playing Rachmaninoff. So this difference is already in classical music. You don't play them the same way. So if I play Brazilian music, I play it a little bit different. I play swing music. And if you play Ellington tunes, you don't play it the same way you play Bill Evans tune. So
Right.
so there are so many things to do in a jazz music. So I don't feel really burning desire to compose my own stuff, because it pales in comparison with good tunes. I
So many.
always So many beautiful tunes, and my background is Russian Jewish, as you probably gathered, and so is many people who made the American Songbook. Great
Right.
American Songbook is
Yes.
basically come from
Oh,
Russian Jewish immigrants that combined the American heritage with the Russian heritage, or Russian Jewish heritage, if you will. Gershwin,
right.
not Cole Porter, but Harold Arlen, and or in Berlin. So many great composers come from the same background. Uh, there's something to be said in a melodic way of Russian music, and but I think it's all international. I noticed that when you listen to some of the stuff that I play, you reacted to the same things that I reacted to, the melodic things, the technical things on the piano. You feel, if you feel jazz music, you feel the same
Right.
way towards, yeah. So
I was so excited when I got these and listened to them, and I was like, wow, why have I never heard of this man? Why is he not more popular?
it's
These
unfortunate.
are
What can I say? I can tell you without any false modesty. Right now, I played some gigs in Sweden, and I had audience like in the palm of my hand. Everything is together. I know how to play for people. I mean, this is just recording in a studio, But live, I really know how to, and that's why I could go to Japan. I know that these people, they love this music so much. I know exactly what to play for them. I know
So
how to.
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can set something up next time you go with Venus to do a live recording in a club there? Would you be able to, have you ever wanted to do
Okay.
that?
Okay, we get to we get to another side of it again. You're asking all the right
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
The Japanese, as opposed to many European and maybe even American people, they antagonistic towards their own musicians. In other words, they don't want you to record with Japanese musicians.
Okay.
I have a half Japanese bass player in Stockholm that is great, and I suggested him at some recording as alternative to Hans Backenroth. They said no.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because they don't want any Japanese musicians in European or American, and that is a problem that exists in Japan when they'd rather have inferior American player playing with Americans than great Japanese guy.
Interesting. So are you able to just take a trio over there of your own and go to the club and play and be recorded?
I no
Just
longer do that. My first company, they wanted me to have a whole trio from it's all ended, with pandemic and everything, because you take three people from here, from Finland or Sweden, so you need three work permits, you need three airline tickets, you need three expenses and hotels and everything, so
right.
everything three times. So and so that record company, Atelier Savanos, which my first, I think I did 7 or 8, can't remember exactly, around 10 records, maybe a little less than 10. I did for them. They wanted the whole package. And also, when you go there with my trio, you only play concerts. You like play Tokyo, Osaka, maybe somewhere else. You practically, sometimes we do clubs, but practically no clubs. So you do concerts and they sell, at the concert, they sell lots of CDs and whatever, DVD, whatever, LPs. So usually they have like 2 bands, sometimes 3 bands they have. 2 bands, they usually have a big concert and they sell CDs. That's how they make money, the promotion for CDs. So I was always interested to go inside of Japan, also play clubs and be near people and get to know Japan more and travel and play for different people and different audiences and interact with different musicians. They were against it. Even they didn't want me to play in Blue Note.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Blue Note Blue Note owner came to my concert in Tokyo and said, "Why don't you play Blue Note?" They said no, because if you play Blue Note, there were at the time there were 3 different Blue Notes in Japan. So you only play Blue Note. You're not supposed to play anywhere else.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you come and play Blue Notes, that's where you play. Yeah. And it's the same with my record company before. You play their concerts, you don't play anywhere else. So I got tired of that. And I got tired with deal with the people, because when you bring people here from Finland or Sweden, but mostly from Finland, my trio, I'm responsible for them. And whatever they do, in Japan, there's so many things you can do wrong and offend these people,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Yes. Okay.
because they have samurai code. And they forgive you because you're a foreigner, but there are so many things that could go wrong. And
Yeah.
I just can't take for so many years, I cannot take responsibility for 2 other guys as well as myself. So now, since 2010, I've been going and playing with Japanese musicians. I've been going over 25 years now to Japan. About 25 years. Sometimes I'd be going like 2 or 3 times a year. But of course, with pandemic, I missed also 2 years. But I've been going to Japanese musicians, and they take care of everything, and they tell me if I do something wrong. They warn me, don't do that, don't say that. Sometimes I'm critical of some things, and they say,
Oh yeah.
I keep my mouth shut and I just play, and that suits me just fine, because they can they can talk to the club owners. They know the routine,
Right.
and and I just come and play, and that's all I want to know. That's enough responsibility for me right there, for keep the music flowing and keep the customers satisfied.
Yes. So what's the future projects? Anything? You're still
I'm
traveling?
going.
You said you still kind of
Yeah.
travel around and play, but any more recordings as well? So you're
Well, I just asked together when I shared your review. I asked this lady producer. I asked her if it's the time to make maybe new ones. So you know, if they want me, I could make. Uh, as you probably know, the record sales in Japan has gone down quite a bit.
oh really?
Oh yes, with
Still?
with internet downloading and everything, they are
Yeah.
down. They are down dramatically. In fact, I heard that that store that I mentioned in Ginza, the biggest music store, they just closed their CD
Oh
department.
really?
Yeah, sad.
Hmm. Because you always hear about the vinyl resurgence. More people are buying records, but they're
Yeah, I
still
think,
not
but I think,
buying what
yeah,
they were buying years
but I
ago.
think they're selling mostly through internet. Yeah. The actual stores are not doing quite as well. You know, uh, I forgot if they closed it altogether, or it just became very, very small, because they had the whole floor when I came first time.
Right. But
Incredible.
so now you're
The
still
whole
playing.
floor, the whole floor was
Cover
CDs,
was
classical and jazz. It's incredible. So many things. But yeah, so I think pandemic had a lot to do with it, and downloading has a lot to do with it. Even though in Japan they are very low obedient, so they're not using illegal downloading. So it's all regulated, but still it interferes with. The only thing that probably would save the actual record sales is that the Japanese love to have autographs. They love to have a contacts with
so you
with.
can yeah.
So you can't autograph the download. So so that would still be so the artists still selling their CDs at the live events. Like I would go now to Japan. I would go, like, I'm going on the 28th of this month. I'm going for like 3 weeks.
Oh, so you'll be there all 3 weeks and you'll be able to play
Yeah, yeah,
all just
yeah. I'm playing very tight schedule. I'm playing except for the first day when I arrive. Sometimes I usually play right out of the airplane. I have like a couple of hours in the hotel, and then I go and hit it right away.
so
But
how
this
do you
time,
like that? Do you still
I
like that?
love
I
that.
mean, you were
I
still
love
enjoying.
that. I love that. While you have still adrenaline flowing, you keep going, and usually it's great. You crush when you come back home, but you have this. You're on
Few
a roll.
weeks.
You're on a roll. I don't like nights off, because you're not doing anything, and you're just usually going somewhere, eating, drinking, not doing anything. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I love to play every night as much as possible. I don't know if when I get older, maybe it won't be the same, but so far, so good. But I usually used to come and play the same evening.
Any
Uh,
plans to come back to the United States to play? And
well,
any
I'd love to. But the deal in New York is, if I make a recording, then I could play some clubs. Still have a connection. I mean, in New York there are some clubs, uh, Smalls and Mesro. The guy who owns those two places used to be a good friend of mine, and in fact was a young piano player when I was on the scene. playing actively. He was a young piano player coming up, so and I befriended him, so he doesn't forget that. So he always tells you're welcome anytime. But see, nobody is going to pay your transportation, your hotel. Somebody needs to do that, because otherwise I'm losing money playing in a club. As much as a pleasure, it's great pleasure for me to come to New York and play, I need to pay for that.
Right. And it's expensive to stay there.
Yeah, it's like pay to play. I don't go for that. I did almost 20 years in New York, so why do I need it again? I did it when it was important. I played Village Vanguard when it was, for me it was like a shrine.
Right.
So for me, I would pay any money to just be able to play, but you didn't have to, because Max Gordon would never accept any money for you to play there. You play there because you deserve it. It's your you played there because you paid your dues. You merited your merits. People knew about you. People knew that you could play, and if you can get some good musicians with the names to play with you, then you could draw the audience too. And so, but nobody just in the time when Max Gordon was alive, nobody just came off the street and say, "Listen, I give you $10,000 to play here." He
No, wouldn't do it.
Because they had the jazz community, and the jazz community was there. The critics and the people who regulars at the club, they would say, "Who is this guy? Why is he playing here?" No, it was just not acceptable. So you had to work your way
To earn a reputation
you had to have
by word
reputation.
of mouth, right?
And that's, even though I met Max Gordon in Russia, and so I knew him. He said, you need to work with bands, you need to be patient, you need to play with a couple of bands, few bands as a sideman, and work your way up, and then maybe you can get them. So so little by little.
Wow. So
you know,
well, Vladimir, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I can go on for hours here.
me too,
There's just
me
so
too.
many.
I,
Maybe we
I
can.
I just came from Sweden and I got a little cold, so I'm not doing right now a hell of a lot. So I just resting. So it came at the perfect time for me. As you notice, I don't like to talk at all. I'm just strong and silent type.
Yes, there's a lot of great stories. I'm sure. Maybe we can do another
I
time.
have, I have
And
millions of stories. Some of them are not suitable to.
yeah, okay, right. But I'd love to talk to you. Again, and talk even more about just jazz and playing the piano and just talking
Well,
about some of the. But yes,
anytime since when we discovered each other, and you have wonderful channel. I look at all these albums behind you, and I'm so very envious because I lost all that
that's
thing.
terrible. That's so sad to
I
hear.
know,
That's
but
just
I'm over that. That's already like 10 years
yeah.
ago. Yeah, so it's you have to. What can at least I had a chance to have them, and
Right.
I was not just collecting. Most of the things that I had, I listened to. I listened very carefully and thoroughly to many of those records. But I had some real out of prints and original blue notes, and I had some really, really, yeah. Because early on when I came to New York, I discovered I bought in a bookstore this catalog. It was just beginning, I think, in States, this idea of collecting out of print records. And I happened to have this catalog with real prices for out of print records. And I realized that most people don't know, even though there were some stores, and I even bought some pretty expensive records because they were out of print, and I just was dying to hear them. But there was no other way. You need to buy them, and then you hear them. So I realized there was a whole new market. So when I came back to Europe, I used to go around in Finland and buying some. Uh, and in New York too, sometimes you would have to. They would have some garage sales. Some people sometimes, you look at New York Times, some person would die and they would be selling all these belongings. So you would go there and go through their record collection. You could find some gems, and sometimes in some flea markets you could find some gems that out of print that. So I acquired quite good
A lot of
good.
records.
Yeah, Yeah, lots of rare, important records as well as just things that I wanted to hear.
Right. All those
Mm.
original Blue Note records, the originals are so hard to
Yeah,
find. It's so
I had,
difficult, so expensive.
I still have a little bit that I survived some. I had some Blue Note EPs, some
Yes.
some original, and Miles Davis Nonette. I have that
Oh yeah.
original.
Okay.
I had that on EP, original printing. Yeah, yeah. And of course, when you go to Japan, oh, I've heard stories when I was in New York. I couldn't believe it. They said, uh, Sonny Clark, Cool Stratton is $1,000 in Japan. They said to me, I couldn't believe it. But when I came there, I saw it was €1,000.
Yes, it's a lot of
Mm.
money.
Yeah,
That's more
and
than it's more than $1,000.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, they have this place called Disc Union in Japan. They have several branches. So they have regular where they have up to date, CDs and stuff like this. But they also have this another room where they have this out of print and original records. And I saw the price. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still it's still the same music, Cool Stratton, but they're ready to pay. It's kind of like first edition books. People are
Right.
collecting
Right.
People
Exactly.
are collecting them not for only for the musical value, but just to have the first print.
Right.
So, but Japanese are absolutely incredible. I have to tell you that sometimes I would play in a club. I would play some tunes that my band wouldn't know, but
They would
the
know.
they would know because they're collecting records and they listen and they know the certain period of jazz, like bebop, hard bop, they can relate to certain tunes, especially minor tunes. They relate so much, and they know thoroughly this music much more than so-called jazz musicians.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
couldn't, and you couldn't tell that because they look like farmers. Some of them. You sometimes I would go somewhere in the deep of the country. It would be like some kind of which looks like a barn, and they would have piano there and seats and people would come. They look like regular folks, and I would
they-
play some irregular tunes and they would know. Yeah, they would come. Sometimes they would come with a list of all the tunes that I play. Even though now I know that, I'm still surprised every time.
right.
I'm still shockingly surprised how much they know about jazz music, and I'm trying to find out how come. And I still haven't got that answer.
Really. Yeah. Because there's a lot of
Nobody,
great.
nobody explains to me. I said, "How come you are so crazy about jazz, and how come you come to know so much about it?" But they also, deep into classical music as well. Sometimes I'd be in Tokyo in a park with some, bike guys with biking, and they sit next to me on the bench, and we start talking. They usually ask because obviously I'm a foreigner, so they ask, "What are you doing here?" And I
Yeah.
say, "I'm a pianist," blah blah blah. So some of them, would be like classical music fans, and they would know all the pianists that it took me some time to discover some people, but
Right.
they would know
They would know them.
because again, I think that Japanese people who are in the stores promoting this music, they are so knowledgeable that they are able to recommend to the customers the best gems, the best people. Yeah, I was first time I came to Japan, I was so surprised to see that they had the DVDs of Russian pianists that Russia no longer had, or maybe even never had. They bought the rights from like TV programs and stuff like this. So they had these pianists that I never seen, but I heard so much about them and recordings. They had them on a disc, on a video disc in Japan. They had all that.
All that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, I remember I used to come from Japan, to have a suitcase full of DVDs and CDs, all kind of things that they had so many rarities. And they still have that. But
Yeah, they do. There's still a lot more things over there that they have that we don't have here in the US.
oh, definitely, definitely. First of all, in old times, the Blue Note, they had a complete catalog Blue Note when Blue Note was no longer available in States. They had it all. They bought the rights. That's what they do. They just go directly to the source and they buy all the rights, good, bad, and different. They buy a whole thing, and then let let the customer sort out what they want, what they don't want. I'm still so impressed with that.
So,
Yeah,
okay. Well, I'll let you. I want to go ahead and
yeah.
we definitely have to get back again. I would love to. We'd love to talk to you
I
some
wish
more,
we could
Willie.
meet in person. We could have some
But
coffee and
yeah, that'd be fantastic.
listen some of your records there.
Maybe someday. Maybe.
Yes, maybe
But
someday I come to Alabama and we get together. Maybe I will. Who knows? Maybe I can come someday and play there. Who knows?
yeah, right.
With
And
your help, with your help, some people, little bit more people would know about me now.
exactly. And then I'm gonna
With the
buy. I
figures
want to
that
buy the other ones. I'm gonna buy some more of your records too, and I'll review those
I hope you
because I'm
enjoy.
really.
I hope you enjoy. I'm hoping to still make better records.
I'm sure you'll be able to. But these are fantastic. These are just
I'm
wonderful.
working hard on that. Yeah. I'm working hard on that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not listening to them, but I know there are some tunes that I really like. But on the overall, giving the short time that we make them and stuff like this, it's very difficult. Not to say that if I had a month to do, I would do any better. it's it's impossible to say if I had a 5 months to do a record that I could do better. I cannot say.
But it's always that magic to me. Jazz is kind of the magic of the improvisation of being able to come in there and play this, and it's
But it's
very
usually in the
spontaneous.
I'm trying to change for the rest record. I could do it in afternoon and in the evening because I feel more comfortable playing in the evening. But they always want to make everything in the morning.
Oh,
I'm not a
really?
I'm not a morning person, so I need to have like you, 10, 10 cups of
Yeah.
coffee before I can go hit on
Right.
the street. Anyway, Matteo, it's really a pleasure. If you need to
You as
go,
well.
and we
Yeah,
have
but we'll
so
do another one. We're like at 2 hours, so this will be a great first episode. We'll definitely have to do another one when you're available. We'll do it
love
again.
that.
Sure.
Love that. I love that. I'm glad we found each other, and I wish all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you. I'm